Dear Grace, unintentional train start. I was worried, Grace. I was worried I was going to run out of material. And I realized I have lots of material. I just have to go from being funny to being serious. And tell serious stories about serious shit that's gone on in the past. And the good news, Grace, is ever since I bought my first miniature tape recorder back in 1989, probably a decade before you were born, Grace. Ever since then, I haven't followed the rules. Professors were all like, don't record our lectures, don't record our lectures. I was like, your lectures are so fucking boring. If I don't record them and listen to them twice, I'm never going to remember a single fucking thing. So I recorded their lectures. And then I actually bought a dictation machine, which would play them back. And I would type up the entire lecture, because I felt that if I typed it, I would somehow remember it more. And maybe I did. I was on the dean's list at journalism school until I quit. I guess I'm a little bit like Bob Goff, a little bit impetuous. Here comes the train, Grace. I wonder if anyone that's actually listening knows it's time to lower the volume. They say, here comes a train, Grace. I already said 1 p.m. is stupid time for a daily sermon. Most people are going to be at work, on their way home from work, whatever else. But 6 p.m. Pacific time isn't bad. It means most people it's going to be 7 and above. But just alright, no one's going to listen anyways, doesn't fucking matter. If I record live, in theory, record live once a day, I don't have to do the extra edit or upload the file, because whatever is there, good, bad, or ugly. Pretty blonde girl in the Bronco. It's gonna be my new country music song, Grace. I wrote a country music song tonight called Pretty Blonde in a Bronco. And then I'll sing it. I'll make it a hymn. Church of Comedy hymn. About pretty girls in Broncos. Little boys playing with their toys. Thing is, pink Bronco, it's brand new, or late model. Factory paint that. And by the way, it's not Mary Kay pink, it's brighter than that. Oh, here it comes, pink toque. This is literally the pinkest day ever. point is that a factory pink paint job? Or is that after the deal? You would buy a fucking brand new vehicle and take it to Mako, get the paint redone. It would go silly. How much does it cost to have a factory pink Bronco, Grace? These are the questions I'll be answering daily, 6 p.m. Pacific. Until I get bored or pissed off or tired or whatever else fucking reason or fucking excuse I could fucking come up with. Next day, Grace, I have no idea what I was talking about in this, but I'm going back to reading book anyways. Chapter 6, go buy your books. I used to think God guided us by opening and closing doors, but now I know sometimes God wants us to kick down some doors. When I told my parents I was applying to law, When I told my parents I was applying to law school, they looked at me like I was proposing to remove my own liver. I think I'm going through male menopause, Grace. Hot 1 second, cold the next. When I told my parents I was applying to law school, they looked at me like I was proposing to remove my own liver. You have to understand, my parents are both educators, so I wasn't the smartest kid growing up. They'd bring home my grades and they'd look at me, wondering how the pear fell so far from the apple tree. When I graduated from high school, they gave me brochures for vocational schools that taught courses on engine electronics and plumbing. I think they pictured me installing low-voltage landscape lighting for the rest of my life. I did too. I got into college and graduated with a degree in something I still know little about. I got into college and graduated with a degree in something I still know little about, and my grades reflected my wafer-thin understanding of the subject matter. It wasn't that I didn't try hard in college, I was just bored and searching for a good match for my particular wiring harness. I wanted to do things that would make a difference in the world. My professors, however, wanted me to do things that would make a difference in my grade point average. I spent most of my college surfing and trying to figure out how I could help people in crisis and abroad, to make some kind of lasting contribution to the world. They didn't want to be a pastor or a missionary. I don't know why he's putting down pastorhood, Grace. I didn't want to be a pastor or a missionary. I knew God had better people set aside for that. So I decided that I was going to be a lawyer. I know a lot of people think they can't love God or be a nice guy and still be a lawyer, but I was betting I could. There's a big test called the LSAT you need to take before applying to your law schools. All the schools look at your score in the test, then decide if they'll let you in. I knew the test was important, so I bought a paperback book on the LSAT at the local bookstore. It was about an inch thick and cost me $7.95, and I read it cover to cover at least 3 times before signing up for the exam. The book was an easy read and seemed simple enough. Most of the book was on how you sign up for the test. When the big day for the exam arrived, I got to the test site an hour early. This was my shot. This was my shot at law school. The people sitting around me ranged from coiffed prep school types to late-night procrastinators still in their pajamas. Regardless of their outward appearance, though, everyone asked what review class I had taken to prepare for the LSAT. Did you take the Princeton review, or was it the Barbary? I heard 4 or 5 names of 2-month-long review courses. Estimated that the average height of prep materials everyone had was about 5 feet tall. It was apparent that I was woefully underprepared, and my glazed over look gave me away. Hey dude, are you okay? One of the test taker said, assuming a surfer guy persona because it probably seemed like the only way he could break through to me. Review class, there's a class you can take to prepare for this test, was all I could choke out, but I looked down at my measly dog-eared prep book and a mere 105 pages inside as I threw it in the nearby trash can. Since I'd already paid the money, I went ahead and took the test. Weeks later, suffice to say, I got the inevitable news. The LSAT crushed me. Despite the headwinds I was facing, I sent my application to several law schools, to give the admissions office a chuckle and a break of the monotony of sizing up real law school candidates. I felt like I was basically making a small donation to each law school I applied to in the form of an application fee. I got lots of mail over the next few months, bringing with lovely politeness that all ended in no. I get that a lot. The really smart kids got letters back from the good law schools welcoming them, and sometimes even giving them scholarships to sweeten their offers. The medium smart kids got regular admissions from the regular law schools, and the just plain kids got put on waiting lists. I got none of the above from anyone. I think some of the schools didn't write back because they figured we both just kind of knew. Some rejections I received even returned my application check. Either they didn't have the heart to take my money, knowing I had a 0 chance of getting in, or they figured that with my score that low, I should save every penny I had. There's one problem with all this. You see, I wanted to be a lawyer so I could make an impact in the world, which meant I had to graduate from law school. With no defensible case for admission anywhere, I still decided I wouldn't take no for an answer. I knew the law school I wanted to attend, so about a week before classes started, I went over to the giant big hall with the dean's office and admissions staff. I introduced myself at the front desk. I seemed pleased to meet the person who'd been phoning him incessantly to confirm that, indeed, he really didn't get in. I walked to the dean's large office door, knocked, and sheepishly entered his austere room, covered with bookshelves and intelligence. The dean of the law school stood up and greeted me with a reserved but polite formality that fit his position and title. I shoved my hand forward confidently, like they say in the books to do, and introduced myself. Hello, I'm Bob Goff, and I applied to get into your law school, I said. The dean smiled politely, didn't say a word, and remained standing. Apparently this wasn't enough to convince him. There's a problem, however. You see, I didn't get an acceptance letter. That meant I didn't even get a rejection letter. I didn't get put on a waiting list either. But I want to get into your law school and graduate. Or I can't be a lawyer someday. I thought I framed my situation pretty well. The dean shook my hand again as he said, "This is a competitive program, and unfortunately we have to turn down many qualified candidates." Mercifully, he skipped the part about me not being one of them. "It was nice to meet you," he said, still shaking my hand. Once he broke his grasp, he put his hand on my shoulder and started moving towards the door. His body language left nothing to be misinterpreted. "Hope you have a nice day," he offered as he began to slowly close the door. I had the chance to say one last thing before the dean disappeared into his paneled office, so I stopped closing the door with my foot and said, "You have the power to let me in. I know all you have to tell me is... I know you have to tell me. You have the power to let me in. I know all you have to tell me is, go buy your books. And I could be a student in the law school. It's that simple. You just need to say those words." He gave me a half grin, indicating he thought it was a cute idea, but wasn't going to happen. Then the door closed. I'm sure he thought he was finished with me, and then could go on with the important business of training law students who actually have potential. There was a bench in the front of the dean's office. It reminded me of the bench I frequently warmed in principals' offices during elementary school. There were 5 days left before law school started, and I decided I would park myself on that bench every day. Every time he passed by, I would say to the dean, "All you have to do is tell me, go buy your books." It was a last-ditch plan from a determined surfer. Can't fucking read today. I read the rest of the chapter silently. Grace, he got into law school. Big surprise. Chapter 7. Sweet Maria. I used to think Jesus motivated us with ultimatums, but now I know he pursues us in love. Blah, blah, blah. Do you remember falling in love the first time? I do. I was a young life leader in college along with my buddy Doug. Young Life is an outfit that does a great job with high school kids, introducing them to Jesus of Nazareth without making a big religious deal. A girl just out of college named Maria came to help Doug and me, as we didn't have any college-age women leaders. I was standing up front playing songs on the guitar when Maria walked in the room. When I saw her, I immediately broke a string, leaned over and whispered to Doug, "That's Mrs. Goff." I asked Maria later what she remembers about that night. She says she doesn't remember whispering anything to anybody about me. If Jesus has taught me anything, though, it's that sometimes you can't really want to know somebody, and it can take some forever to want to know you back. The day I saw Maria was 10 days before Valentine's Day, and since I had already secretly claimed her as my bride, I figured I'd better let her get to know me. You know, that feeling where you don't know what to do with yourself? Everything reminds you of that person, a painting, a sunset, children playing, a couple holding hands, a paperclip, my wristwatch, everything. Yet thinking about them just isn't enough. You need to do something, anything. Maria worked at an advertising agency on the 12th floor of a high-rise office building downtown. I had known Maria for a whole week and a half, so I did the most sensible thing I could think of. Make her a huge Valentine's Day card. I got 2 huge sheets of 4-foot by 8-foot cardboard and glued the edges together. The perfect envelope. I made a stamp the size of a doormat and put it on the envelope upside down. Guys, you know what that means. I love you, right? If not, back to finishing school for you. No, I didn't know that. Learn something new. Grace every single fucking day. I can now sleep in peace. Inside, I took another 4-foot by 8-foot piece of cardboard and wrote, Maria, will you be my Valentine? Simple, straightforward, not too hard to spell. I really wanted to write, Maria, will you marry me? But it would have been a little early. Proposals are definitely week 3 material. Or year 3, in my case. I borrowed a guy's truck and drove my gigantic car downtown and into the garage of the high-rise. I struggled to get the car into the elevator and drew more than a few odd looks and smiles. The elevator sped me upward. I felt so excited I thought I was going to faint, but I didn't want to crumple a card, so I pulled myself together. Wouldn't Maria think this was just about the greatest Valentine's card date she'd ever received? The elevator slowed to a stop and sounded the bell as the doors opened. It took me a while to get the card out of the elevator. The bell started ringing more urgently. It probably sounded like someone had installed a Vegas-style slot machine next to the emergency phone. It was just me struggling to get the card out of the elevator. Word must have spread in the office about the guy with the big card stuck in the elevator, because within a few seconds, a small crowd gathered in the lobby. I heard them wonder out loud if they should have the fire department bring the jaws of life to get me out. Once I got clear of the doors, a small gaggle stared at me like I was wearing diving gear, fin, snorkel, scuba tank, the whole bit. For the first time I started thinking that maybe this wasn't such a good idea, but it was late. After being paged, But it was too late. After being paged, Maria came around the corner and saw me standing there with a big, dumb grin, floppy ears, and a gigantic, overambitious card. I don't think a group of guys stomping out of Riverdance behind me would have been out of place. That would have been more of a shock to her. During the next 6 months, or more of a shock to her, Maria was absolutely mortified. It set our courtship back about 6 months, bare minimum. During the next 6 months, I was trigger lock on Maria while she treated me with polite distance. She would barely talk to me, and I was told, hopefully with a good dose of sarcasm, that the sight of cardboard made her run. But I was undaunted, despite the fact that a column of smoke was still rising from smoldering embers where I crashed and burned on Valentine's Day. I didn't quite know what to do with myself, but I had to do something to express what I was feeling inside. Start a podcast. What's the worst that can happen? Then I remembered, I knew where she parked her car. I decided to start each day by making Maria a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and put it under her windshield wiper of her car. Why? I'm not quite sure. It was like I... Now, aren't you glad, Grace? I'm glad that I didn't stalk you like that, Grace. I think ghosting's way less creepy. Why? I'm not quite sure. It's like I was sandwich stalking her. Sometimes I would even put notes in the sandwiches. I know all this sounds crazy, but if you got to know me, I bet you wouldn't think so. Maria probably thought I was weird. But weird can be safe too, and my love was a weird, safe love. Fortunately, Maria understood that for some of us, most of us, the language of love is laced with whimsy. Sometimes border on the irrational. Like I've been saying though, love is a do thing. It's an energy thing to be dissipated. I lived in a beach house in San Diego during law school. I lived in a beach house in San Diego during law school. It was more like a shack, actually. It was next to a laundromat. A couple of us homely-looking guys lived together and split cheap rent. There's a house across the alley from us that was often rented by female young life leaders. So I angled for Maria to get a room. It turned out that the three homely guys in our house were interested in the three beautiful girls in their house. Eventually, each of the guys married each of the girls, one apiece, no kidding. So it just happened that whichever slept on the bottom bunk at their house was always the next to get married to one of us. Looking back, I wish I had snuck in and made the other matches a little less comfortable because Maria never seemed to move into that bottom bunk. I suspected that she had seen the trend and had perhaps opted to sleep on the couch or floor rather than risk ending up with me. During the time that I was trying to get Maria to notice, he's got it bad for this Maria chick. I was studying for the bar exam. She would come over to say hello, and I'd be curled up in the fetal position. Towards the end of law school, the professor told us to look around because every third person in the row wouldn't pass the exam. No matter which end of the row I started counting from, I was always the third guy. I'm not one for superstitions or anything, but there's a real sense of portent. I don't think I've ever seen that as a word. Not saying it's not, it is, but weird. Still learning new things, Grace. Never mind that. I'd been studying for 3 years. Adding to the pressure, I didn't want to ask Maria to marry me unless I had passed the bar exam. I'm not sure why. This was a self-imposed prerequisite. I guess I didn't want her stuck with the guy that constantly mumbled about how the 7th time's a charm while duplicating keys in a parking lot kiosk. What makes it worse is that my roommate Kevin was the top student at law school and was about to gaggle of pretty girls walk by. Grace. Kevin was a top student at the law school and was about the smartest guy in the whole world. His girl couldn't wait for him to pop the question. No one seemed to be wondering how the bar exam would work out for Kevin. I, on the other hand, was scanning the want ads as a fallback. Somehow I squeaked by the California bar exam the first time. It was finally time to ask sweet Maria to marry me. I arranged to borrow someone's brand new $500,000 yacht. I hatched a plan to sail to a secluded place where Maria and I would take my tiny thrash sailboat and read books together. Books she bought us about friendship, actually. By now, I sensed that Maria was either overcome with pity or actually starting to like me. She probably also that if she married someone else, I'd likely live under her house just to be near her. She must have decided liking me back would be less complicated and less creepy. I decorated the yacht with a rainbow's worth of colored crepe paper, and then it started raining. The rainstorm hit with a vengeance, drenching my proposal plans and leaving the brand new yacht with colors smeared across the deck and a hull like a very expensive tie-dyed t-shirt. I didn't spend the day proposing to Maria and dreaming about a life together. I spent it scrubbing soggy-colored disappointment off some guy's boat. Although the first plan had imploded, I was still going to get that girl. Just going to get the girl. I had an idea. There was a turn-of-the-century building next to the Hotel de Corondo, and the roof was enclosed by this thing called a widow's walk. It was more of an architectural feature, really. But to me, it created a tiny rooftop restaurant, one that was 8 feet by 8 feet. Layers of dust, broken chairs, old napkins, and outdated menus were strewn about, but I had high hopes for it. I described my failed boat caper and floundering marriage proposal dreams to the building owner. The guy could see how desperate I was, and I was doing my best to look forlorn, which wasn't hard. So he let me move the chairs and set up a small table, 2 chairs and some candlesticks in the tiny room. Later that night, as the storm raged outside, I led Maria up to the little room I had readied. When Maria and I finished dinner, I got down on a knee and asked, "Maria, will you?" Then, the emotion of the moment was just too much for me, and I couldn't talk anymore. As has been one of Sweet Maria's many outstanding characteristics ever since she helped me finish what I had started and said yes. These days, I continue to tell Sweet Maria that I am much more experienced at loving her than she is at loving me. Because among other things, I've been at it a couple of years longer than she's been. She usually teases me about the lame Valentine's card and asks me what in the world I was thinking with the sandwiches under the wipers each morning. I love my wife very much, and I always will. For the past 25 years, she's been my muse. My love for her and her love for me is the fire that warms our family. But the reason I wanted to tell you this story is that it has to do with another thing I learned following Jesus. Because God made me to love Maria, and because God made it so I had to convince her to love me back, He gave me a very real way to understand what is happening in the universe. Because of our love for each other, I understand that just a little more how God has pursued me in creative and whimsical ways that initially did not get my attention. Nevertheless, He wouldn't stop. That's what love does. Pursues blindly, unflinchingly, and without end. When you go after something you love, you do everything it takes to get it, even if it costs you everything. Maria and I spend our summers in a beautiful part of British Columbia. Son of a bitch. We built a house on the water so people who are tired or need to work something out can come and find rest. The house is at the end of an inlet that might be the most beautiful place on earth, and one of my favorite things to do in the inlet is take a boat back to a place called Chatterbox Falls. To get there, you have to go through a fjord with rock cliffs, jutting up from the water thousands of feet on both sides until they disappear beneath huge white glaciers. There's a mountain too, a beautiful mountain called One Eye. You can see it on your left as you race across the water to Chatterbox. Sometimes we go right by it and I don't pay any attention, but other times it strikes with the power that causes me to stop the boat and stare in amazement. To me, it's proof that God loves us and pursues us and does things to get our attention, like giving me my mind to perceive beauty, blah, 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 blah. One more paragraph. I've seen mountains with peaks that look like the heads of a horse and others that look like eagle wings stretched out in flight. But to me, when I stop, amazed again at the way God loves me and pursues us and kind of squint a little, one eye looks a lot like a guy sitting on an elevator with a giant Valentine's Day card. That's not a bad love story. Jimmy Darts is better. One day, Grace, ours will be the best.